Alright, I just found the BBC Question Time from 3 days ago, and I wanted to just watch it and then just go to sleep, but I can't do it because Julia Hart-Brewer is a fucking ignorant twat. She's there trying to. I really should just put it on, but to give you a preface, I'm actually going to play pretty much the whole thing here, right? And I might get told off for it, so I do apologise in advance if it doesn't work. However, this fucking idiot is trying to tell us that the scientists I don't actually say that the world is on fire, and don't actually say that these weather events are getting more frequent and worse, despite the fact that they are. Yes, these things have happened in the past, but they're happening with greater frequency now. The consensus of scientific analysis says this. When you see a graph that looks favourable to what you believe, that's called confirmation bias, you fucking idiot. And then you try to lecture people about objectivity, you fucking idiot. Right, I'm going to rewind. I can't believe I'm going to do this. But, yeah, I'm going to start from back here.
Good evening. Welcome to our panelists, welcome to our audience here, and we have you here in order to reflect the opinions of the nation, of course, the voting patterns of the nation as well. Very, very good to see you. Of course, welcome to you at home. Do join in the conversation the usual way on social media at BBC Question Time. Let's hear.
I believe this is Fiona Bruce. Yeah, Fiona Bruce.
What you've got to say. Okay, we'll take our first question tonight, and that is from Finola Gams.
Can Rishi Sunak unite a fractious Tory party and bring stability to the government of this country?
Fucking hope.
So, well, Lucy, as the newest person on the panel here, what's your answer to that?
Well, there's a very straightforward answer, and that's yes. And I think he's done that already. So his primary aim is to bring economic stability to the country, because from that all other policies flow. And we will see that when we have the fiscal statement on the 17th.
I remember rightly, a couple of days ago, or yesterday even, Maximilian Robespierre put out a video about this fucking idiot being caught out in a lie.
Of November. But I think he's already stabilised the markets. I think he's brought the party together. I don't know whether any of you watched PMQs on Wednesday, but
Prime Minister's questions.
Prime Minister's questions.
Not in the Westminster Village.
On Wednesday, the time when there is the debate between him and the leader of the opposition, and I think what you saw behind him was a united party who wants to.
Tory party that wants to show that they're united because they're fucking shit scared.
Get on and deal with the issues that you have in the country, get the economy back on track, ensure that we spend money in our schools and our hospitals, and that we deliver for you in the country.
Armando?
Well, here we are, day 2, and already we're talking about how long the Home Secretary is going to last. And it has been, I think, there's always a danger when you get a new Prime Minister, you think you're getting a new government, and you're not. That's not how the Constitution works. And in the reshuffle, we saw the same old faces coming in, some left, some right. So it's been like watching a giant tumble dryer go around. It's the same old faces. And it's very difficult for a Prime Minister to relaunch a government, because the Constitution just doesn't work that way. And I think part of the problem has been, over the last 10 years, we've given this role of Prime Minister a kind of presidential meaning to it, some all-powerful figure. And I think that's what the mistake is.
The Americanization of our politics.
That you could change everything. So I think what we have now is someone who can at least string 2 sentences together and sound and look competent. But I think, as the weeks go on, we'll see the government start to fray, because the same old people have the same old attitudes to government. Someone like Suella Braverman, who politicises every a law and every aspect of the Home Office that she's meant to preside over is not going to last that long.
And do you think she should stay in post? Suella Braverman, of course, was
Well,
sacked under the previous Prime Minister, brief tenure, over breaching the serial code, over sending emails from a private email account and thereby breaching
And I'm told today the MI5 is teaching her what the principles of safety and security are and what she's allowed to email and what.
Should she not have been getting these lessons before? Just, do you know?
Should be secure. Some people say that Rishi Sunak was naive in bringing her back to her post, but I just wonder if he's been very, very clever indeed in that he got the promise from her to support him, therefore he gets over the line as long as she gets the Home Office, knowing that in 6 weeks' time, by the time she's, said that, tofu has to be criminalised as a Class A drug or whatever, and has to go, he's won, because he's then got rid of her.
Woman there, yes, in the black.
Oh, great. Just the original question to Lucy about Sunak uniting the party. Do you think that you need someone a little bit more relatable in terms of wealth to unite the nation?
Do you want to take that for me?
Yeah, look, I'm really proud of people who self-start. I'm really proud.
Right, I want to challenge this right the fuck now, okay? I can't think of any better way to ask Google this, so I'm just going to speak it out. Is Rishi Sunak an actual self-made millionaire? Right. I love it. Like, oh, he did it all himself. He's a fucking banker, of course he got. Oh. He does my fucking head in. I know I didn't get a square answer for that. Let's have a look. I've got to have a look. This is gonna do my head in. I note that it only says about his father-in-law and his brother-in-law and his mother-in-law, and not about his actual parents. His parents are suspiciously out of this. Okay. This is the Southeast African-born Hindu parents of Indian Punjabi descent. Yashvir and Usha Sunak. I guess. Yeah, so his father was a doctor. What a shock. It's not what? Look, I'm not putting the fact that his father being adopted, but the point is that he's coming from a fairly well-off background here. He didn't go, he went to a preparatory school. What? Winchester College, a boys' independent boarding school where he was head boy. I believe in having good intellect, but this is just... And you get this whole bullshit of self-made millionaire, and I'm like, self-made? I'm not seeing it. He worked for hedge fund management firm. I wonder how he got his funds. Yeah. Self-made millionaire, my fucking ass. It's bullshit. In the sense of, yes, he might have doing all this, his side deals and all this fucking shit, and reaping the benefits of the financial crash, because he was part of the fucking shit. And if anyone wants to come and deny that, fucking go and look it up yourselves. Goldman Sachs, he worked for them. And he wasn't just a minor player. I don't care. I've had people, oh, he was just he wasn't just a minor player. Okay? But this woman is about to tell you that it doesn't matter how much money, he's a self-made millionaire, I'm really proud we got self-made. He's a privileged son of a bitch. It's just, as I've tried to say before, the Tories have disguised their classism by going, oh, we're not racist. We talk. It's infuriating.
People.
And I'm actually going to need something to chill me out, because this is, to keep me on a level, because this is...
Who get on in life and make money. I think that...
Should we just put it in context? Those don't know. I mean, he's, whether you think this is relevant or not, this is a question you're asking. He's the wealthiest prime minister in history, and he and his wife's wealth,
twice
I'm not exactly sure, but it's reportedly something like 730 million.
I think what you need to judge...
They're laughing at her. The crowd are laughing at the Tory.
For the country. And what Rishi delivered during the pandemic was supporting the economy, making sure that businesses didn't go under, making sure those who were vulnerable got support. So he delivered for the country. The IFS said that the package was...
15 billion or 11 billion or whatever it was. It was over 10 billion in fraud, and he went, that's right, we can do away with that, it's alright. We lost 11 billion pounds, but in fraud, but fuck it. Because his system wasn't fucking robust enough, because the Tories didn't bother to setting up contingencies for something like the pandemic.
One of the most comprehensive...
Even though they were warned it was coming.
World. I think what he has delivered since he's been Prime Minister, it's only been a few days, is stabilising the market so that everybody can rest assured that although we're living in a world where cost of living is going up, the government will do whatever it can. And that's what you should be asking yourself. Is he going to deliver for me? Not what his private...
You haven't delivered. All you've done over the last 12 years is make our NHS worse and worse and worse.
So it's therefore about what he does. But, last year or 2 years ago, the Town Fund put towns in 580 towns in order of the greatest need. This is part of the levelling up process.
And this was for money to go to towns.
And Rishi Sunak moved Conservative constituencies up the list. That's hence that footage of him saying he took money away from.
And that they will swear blind they're not being party political. Now, it's true that you could say that Labour could do the same thing, but does it work out that way?
Inner cities and gave it to Tunbridge Wells.
I think what he was saying in relation to that was what the Labour government had done was give money to big urban areas. And in fact, disadvantage spreads across the country. And what we need to do is level up across the country. So some quite wealthy areas, actually there's deprivation within them as well. So what we need to do.
What does that speak to, though? Why don't you use the funding that's in the wealthy areas to help deal with the deprivation in those areas rather than taking funds away from areas that have it a lot worse over a larger area? The ideology is fucking retarded.
Is not just level up in big cities. We need to level up across the country, and that's what he was saying.
Let me just come around the audience. There's lots of hands up. The woman in the very back in the red top.
Hi, Lucy, just to go back to what you said about economic stability being reflected in stability in the markets, don't you think it's a little dangerous to tie the economic stability of the country to the markets when what might be beneficial for the markets is not necessarily beneficial for ordinary people, especially in a cost of living crisis?
Fucking right.
I'm going to come back to you, but I just want to come around a few more people first. Yes, and the woman further down in the glasses.
Oh, yeah. So Rishi Sunak has derived his legitimacy to govern from the 2019 mandate, and that was fought. A big issue for that was levelling up. But then at the same time, he says tough decisions need to be made economically to get us out of this mess. So is levelling up still going to happen, and how is it going to happen?
Between 20 and 30.
We just want to come back to you on that. Let me just bring more of the panel in. Julia. So can Rishi Sunak unite his fractious party?
Well, I think he and his party will hope so. As he told his MPs, unite or die. Those are the choices. I have to say, I do look forward to reading Suella Braverman's memoirs of her 6 days in the political wilderness. I think I'll make a post-it note. But the reality is, he brought a lot of people in, whether they were Trussites or Penny Mordaunt fans, or whether they wanted Boris Johnson back, because basically he wanted them to be, to paraphrase an American president, spitting out of the tent rather than spitting in. I'm thinking of you, Michael Gove. But the reality is, we need it to work, whether you support the Tories.
Listen to how condescending this bird is about Tories, right? Now, and then wait till later. It's just, I don't like her on a visceral level.
Rishi Sunak, particular, or Labour, or anybody else, there isn't going to be a general election. Prime Ministers don't call general elections when they're 28 or 30 points behind in the polls, and we are in a dire crisis. I think we'd all be with Brenda from Bristol back in 2017. Oh no, not another one. There's too much politics. That's what she had to say. And I think, actually, when we're in the crisis that we're in, and it's not all created by Liz Truss, there's lots more reasons why we're in this crisis.
A general election if the government would do its fucking job.
A plague on all of your houses on that front.
Fuck's sake.
The reality is we need to have this work, because we haven't got time to have a general election. We need to have some action to help people who are facing a really, really rough winter ahead.
We said this last winter.
Well, let's be honest, Liz Truss was shocking. The bar is phenomenally low. It would be very hard.
David Lammy, Labour MP.
Not to be moderately better. But I've got to say, I'm concerned that he's more focused on his party.
And shadow Foreign Secretary.
And the truth is, to wake up yet again to stories about breaches of the ministerial code. This is on the back of Boris's problems with the ministerial code, Priti Patel's problems with the ministerial code, Hancock's problem with the ministerial. It just goes on and on and on. This is a serious office of state. And the only reason she's there is because she's in the pocket of the ERG. This country is bigger than just...
Yes, David Lammy. Fucking yes.
So I suspect he's not going to be able to unite his party. And by the way, he didn't even get a mandate from his party's members.
No,
they
he fucking
rejected
didn't.
him in the summer. They didn't put it to them this time round because they thought he'd
Nope,
get
'cause he was
rejected
shite scared.
again. Never mind a mandate for the people. So I'm afraid what we need is a general election. He's not going to cut it.
Where was Gordon Brown's
Not to get one, but we need one.
No election. Where was Gordon Brown's mandate? I don't remember you shouting about that.
I remember the Tories running a campaign saying, vote Blair, get Brown. You and I know that,
and we did.
that he got a mandate, he put himself to the country, he was rejected, we moved on. But everyone knows that Blair and Brown governed broadly together for many, many years.
What should be the
completely different to we've had 3 prime ministers in as many months.
Okay, let's hear from our audience. Man there in the white shirt and the dark jacket.
What I'm looking at and what I'm worried about is, are we sacrificing ministerial competence in the name of party unity?
And what do you think?
I think we are, and I'm a paid
And this
Conservative
guy-
Party member, and I wouldn't vote for them at the moment.
This guy must be-
I kind of echo what the MP Chris said the other
at least
week,
10 years younger
and
than me.
I'm actually almost horrified with the level of incompetence that
Maybe a
the
little
government
bit.
has shown.
Walker, I think, yes.
Charles Walker, not Chris, that we've seen from the party over the past basically 18 months, 2 years.
Coffee, by the way.
And the factionalisation we've seen is not a solution, and handing out ministerial positions just so you can try and cobble things together for another few months isn't working.
Okay. Man there in the blue shirt and the tie.
I wonder if, given the events of this summer in the Conservative Party, whether Mr Iannucci will need a new baseline for omni-shambles.
And the man in the blue shirt.
I'd just like to know when politicians are going to actually put the country first, the party second, and themselves third.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it would appear it's the other way around.
And do you feel that across the board for all parties or one in particular?
What would that mean, though? What would that mean?
What does that mean?
I'd like to know how
Surely
Labour
they should
Party
have
is
the
putting
best
the
interests
party
of the country
back.
uppermost in their minds, not themselves, not the party.
But in terms of policies, what
in
would you
terms
want?
of bickering between themselves, you need to pull together. If we're in a crisis, like we say we are, we need to pull together and pull all together and pull out of it.
Okay, all right. Just 1 second. Just even the woman just in front. Yes, with the glasses, yeah.
I just feel, what do we think is more important right now? And this is to anyone on the panel. Is it stability or democracy? It follows on from what the gentleman has said behind me. That it's really important that we maybe think about having cross-party decisions when it comes to big things, such as COVID, war in Ukraine, now this cost of living crisis. Should it now not be a time for us to all come together from both sides of the House to sort out what's going on?
Parties used to be broad churches, but now the factions within those parties are no longer talking to each other, are no longer willing to compromise, which is why you have something like the ERG or the right and the left within parties not wanting to. It's all about trading positions off against each other.
But it was always like that. When wasn't it like that?
Let me come back to Lucy, because there are a number of questions coming to you. In
I would have liked to have had an answer.
So two of the things
on
that you were asked were: is it dangerous? You were saying, I think at the back there, for to rely on to prioritise economic stability among the markets, and
although
also
Fiona does quite well to bring it back to the.
And you should know, because I know you've only just you only got appointed last night, hadn't you? But can levelling up continue if budgets are going to be cut? And then I just wonder what you say to the young man over there. You're a Conservative voter, but you're thoroughly unimpressed.
I would like to
thoroughly
unimpressed. Might take up and everything that everyone said. People have raised some really interesting points. Can I just actually start with the gentleman and then go to the questions that were specifically asked? The gentleman who said politicians need to start putting the country first. Can I just give you an example, because I think it's a really strong one, about a really incredible politician who put the country first and not his own interests very recently. So Rishi Sunak, our now Prime Minister, had a leadership contest. And at the outset of that leadership contest, he said, I'm going to tell you the truth. It's an uncomfortable truth, but I'm going to tell you it. And do you know what? Saying that was not in his interest, because that is not what the Conservative members wanted to hear. What they wanted to hear was about sunny uplands. And we know that because Liz Truss won. But even though the polling was saying that, and even though Rishi knew that at the start, He ran his campaign on honesty and levelling with the British public.
What about these other
Yes,
countries?
but the reason why we're in such a shit position, compared to the rest of Europe, by the way, yes, the rest of Europe is also going through shit, but we are in a shit position.
Party elected Liz Truss. Why did they elect Liz Truss? Because
God,
it
this
was
guy's...
uppermost in most people's minds that she was not fit for office. So why did she get the office? I'll tell you why.
That was a decision for party members. I supported Rishi Sunak.
Friends in places. You give me a job, I'll back you. Simple.
Well, I don't have any.
Well, yeah.
Very briefly, I just want to move on to this because then I'm going to take another.
Sure. So,
fucking excuses.
Economic stability is the heart of everything, because if we have economic stability, that's the foundation on which we can build all other policies. So if we have economic stability, if we have market stability,
I love how it, especially with the Conservative Party, it's all, ultimately it all comes down to money. Well, given that money is just maths, in my own opinion, why don't you look at the sums properly and see how the numbers can be redistributed a lot more evenly across the board, rather than trying to give stuff to your fucking donors, or giving tax breaks to the rich. I find it hilarious, right? There's this whole, you get this whole bullshit. Oh, but the richest, they get the highest tax. No, not in real terms. They don't feel the tax. Not the top 5%. They don't fucking feel it. We feel the tax just trying to buy shit from the shop. And we see that because of the rising prices. So yes, it's not like it is in America where you pay for the tax up front, like when you go to the till, and with the price of the thing as well. No, the shop deals with that and puts the price up accordingly over here. And so we actually feel that tax a lot more than these fucking rich people do. And yet, what's tax breaks and shit? What? Now, yes, Rishi Sunak said this was fancy economics, but that's what he wants ultimately anyway. It was ridiculous of Mug last year to start calling Sunak a socialist chancellor. I was like, you fucking twat.
then we can support the most vulnerable. Then we can give money to our schools. So I understand what you say, but I think economic stability is central to ensuring that we can do everything else. And just very briefly on levelling up.
Is that going to fall by the wayside along with others?
I was to continue to make that point was, it's always about money, but what about education? What about resources? About food? About shelter? Homes across the country. Forget about money, we got the resources. If not, where can we get the resources? Then you talk about money. Don't just start off with, got to make sure we got the money. Because then you're only, you're not setting a lot aside for change and being able to adapt to changing situations. If we had a better educated people across the board in whichever type of vocation, whatever type of learning you like to go into, why is it just cut? And then rich people have just got even richer. It's ridiculous.
No, I mean, I done a meeting today. As I said, I've only been 24 hours in the job. But I had meetings today across every portfolio, and levelling up is here to stay.
Right, you heard it here. Okay, I'm going to move on, not because this isn't worth talking about, but you asked quite a lot of other questions as well, and I want to try to fit them all in. Before I do, I'm just going to tell you that question time will be in Horsham in West Sussex next week, and after that we are in Wells in the southwest. So if you want to come along and be part of those audiences, go to the Question Time website and you can follow the instructions there. And incidentally, the list of all our venues for this series is there, so you can sign up for any of those if they're in your area. That's at the BBC Question Time website. Okay, let's take another question now from Dr. Aisha Dokrat.
Patients are not being discharged into the community due to social care crisis, leaving no beds for patients who need them. How is the government going to tackle this?
So, you're a doctor.
Yep.
What's your experience of this?
So it affects me. I work in urgent care and I also work on 111 calls. There's a knock-on effect, I think, that a lot of people probably don't realise. For example, I have to, when I speak to a patient, if a patient needs to go to the hospital, I then have to decide whether I'm going to call an ambulance or not, because it can take up to 4 hours for an ambulance to arrive for a patient.
Or even a patient that's seriously ill?
Even a patient that's seriously ill. Recently, we had a patient in urgent care who...
I heard this, not this actual story, but this one's coming up with now, but something similar the other day, and one of the responses I heard was, oh, but it was like that under the last Labour government. And I was just waiting for someone, anyone, to point out the fact that, yeah, in the worst circumstances, not on average. And yet you will still get Tories saying, oh no, it's better under our governance. Your lives have been so much better under our governance than it ever was under Labour. Bullshit. And just people keep eating it up because they can't do rational thinking these days because the education levels are just sunk. Look at the people that have become famous. Joey Essex. I mean, that's a bit of an aged fucking reference at this point. But my point is proven. You know, throughout the 2010s, and you could say somewhat during the noughties, but more during the 2010s, the TV got more banal. General TV got more banal and generic and just awful. Like, where's the imagination gone? It's not like everything is already been thought when it comes to imagination. Not only that, but loads of ideas get cut out when it comes to stories for, fictional stuff. Because, I don't think a certain amount of people will like it, so we're not going to do it. Well, why don't you do it? Just find out. Chuck loads of money into stuff that isn't any good, and then still making the profits from whatever it gets back. But no. For the Tories, they will continue to sell you the lie. We are doing better than Labour ever did. It is utter bullshit.
May have been having a heart attack. We waited 4 hours for an ambulance. And this knock-on effect,
4 hours?
4 hours. We had to wait 4 hours. And we have to ensure that the patient is stable, and we don't have all the facilities that an A&E department would have. So we have
15 minutes per average for the arrival time of ambulance under the last Labour government. Is it 4 hours at the worst in the countryside? Like, this shit's happening now in populated centres. It's ridiculous. And again, I know I'm going heavy on this point, but they keep telling us, oh, no, we're doing it better than Labour did. How? Where is the proof of that bullshit?
Had to wait 4 hours. And it's just a knock-on effect, because what's happening is the ambulances aren't able to offload their patients in A&E. And then A&E obviously have a full, they don't have any capacity. And they're not able to get the patients onto the wards. This also affects elective
because
surgeries.
People aren't being discharged then into social
exactly,
care.
they're not being discharged into social care. So the beds are being taken up in the hospitals. And with patients who don't actually need to probably, they don't need the hospital care. But there isn't any social...
It's really difficult to listen to this. I mean, it's a strange example, but when I must have been 9 or 10, I won't go into too much detail of why we were there, but we were at Exeter University, me and my younger brother, doing it with a group for kids. And they had a bouncy castle in the hall. It was all fun. And I had a weird... I fell really weirdly on it and lost feeling in my from the waist down for quite a while. It's quite horrible. When I didn't really know what to do with me, I got picked up and taken home. My dad finally realised that I wasn't lying, because he tried tickling me feet and nothing. And we called the ambulance and it come out and it was dealt with. I got feeling back in my legs, but I got seen relatively quickly. And it's like, where is that service now? When I was in Plymouth a couple of years ago, I had the first time I had the worst. The first time I had a really bad, it was the first time I'd ever experienced the worst toothache ever, right? Because every time we got a really bad toothache, it is always the worst one ever. But the very first time it happened to me, and I took 26 codeine, and it didn't touch it. I went into Dartford Hospital. I was waiting there for fucking hours. And I was screaming. I was waiting for triage. All I wanted was a jab in the face, just so I could get some sleep without screaming. And I had to wait and wait and wait. I remember what it was like when I was younger under the last Labour government. It was never that bad. And it was because the hospitals were run more efficiently, because they had the right amount of funding going to the right places, for the most part. Now, it's not for the most part. It just goes to, a lot of it goes to private companies.
There's nowhere else for them to go. And so when you're sitting with a patient, just since we've got you here, you're sitting with a patient for 4 hours who you think might be having a heart attack, which obviously is potentially fatal. What does that make you feel?
It makes us it upsets us, obviously, but it's also very stressful, because we have other patients that we need to see, so there's a backlog. But then what happens is we're worrying about this patient. We're having to monitor the patient. We have to have...
When you've got staff leaving in droves, That doesn't help when you've got to see lots of other people. Education is one of the key foundations of what we need, let alone the economy. Education is one of the major things we need in this country. And the Tories will say, oh, we've got one of the best figures in the world. Look more closely at your figures.
A nurse, triage nurse, or someone to be with the patient. It's very stressful for us. We're having to make decisions which, for example, it's just very stressful for us.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I think she wanted to say something then, but looked like she was being hurried along.
David,
it's desperate. Right across the NHS, you can't find an NHS dentist. I met a woman who's been...
If you watch this on a regular basis, you might have noticed I've got shit teeth. I am on the list. You can tell me to go to the dentist all you like, right? I have been on the list for an NHS dentist and a specialist dentist. Oh my God. It must be now for 4 years. 5 years, possibly. It's ridiculous.
Been waiting for an appointment at a bowel clinic for 18 months.
I'm kind of annoyed at the first Labour government for not including dentistry under this. Under the NHS. More solidly.
The government's ambition is that you should see your GP within 2 weeks. We had a decade of cuts in the National Health Service, and now...
Oh, Lucy Fraser, the entire time that David Lammy is talking and he's looking around the panel, he's and he's speaking to the audience as well, right? And she's just there like, just not talking, not even looking in his direction, not even... And the Tories wonder why people hate them.
As a consequence of the black hole that they gave us, they're talking about further austerity in public services. The NHS is on its knees. Nurses are leaving because they want a less stressful life. They're having to take their own kids to food banks.
What was I heard something about? Oh, well, congratulations for more nurses. They're barely able to replace the ones who are leaving. So what are you talking about? 15,000 new police officers. Yeah, well done. Are they properly trained? Are they racist? Are they sexist? Are they abusive? Are they abusers? I don't like to say this about police because I believe in a police force. Not a police force, a police service. Yeah? In the way that we think we are supposed to have our police in this country. I get that the reality for a lot of people is not what we think how our police are supposed to behave. But we need to get back to that standard. There needs to be a proper standard set. Because it's like no one knows what the actual standard for decent work in public office means. It is like there's no standard for it now. No one knows what that means.
Desperate, and this is the 6th richest economy.
She's still looking down like an ignorant
and
fucking
I hope
cunt.
when we get that next general election, Lucy, your party will be held to account for what you've done in the National Health Service.
I fucking hate that bitch.
Julia.
There's no doubt at all the NHS is in crisis. About 8 million people waiting for operations at the current time. A report this week showing that 7 out of 10 NHS trusts have longer than 2-week waits from when someone very anxious goes to the GP and then gets referred to actually see someone in hospital. the NHS is really good at lots of things. The one thing it's not really good at is saving lives, unfortunately. We have some very bad metrics on that
Who
front.
can we blame
And a lot of that, I think,
for that?
is long term. It's not been, look, it's not had funding. It's funding, even when there was austerity under Cameron, it did go up, but it didn't go up by as much as it gone up under Blair and Brown. That is a simple fact. And at the same time, people were getting older and people were getting fatter and they needed more healthcare. So in that respect, it was but the doctor just mentioned there,
in real terms,
this big issue about bed blocking. It's a horrible term, but basically 1 in 7 patients in our hospitals right now don't need to be there. They are elderly often. They need to be somewhere else, and those beds be freed up. And as you say, there's a knock-on.
This is why social care needed to be brought under the NHS. The standard of care under private services can vary so much. It can be brilliant, but because of the lack of regulation, it can also be utterly shite. And we saw that in the pandemic. And if you're going to deny that, I will kick you in the fucking teeth if it doesn't put my back out. Fuck's sake.
Effect for all the hospital wards, all the way back to A&E, all the way back to getting an ambulance. And you expressed surprise at a 4-hour wait. A member of my family who had an accident was told it would be a 6-hour wait, and he had a broken pelvis, which has I'm told, a 25...
Again, 14 years ago, would this have been a regular thing? No, it wasn't a regular thing. All of the statistics say this. Yes, it did happen. But was it happening on anywhere near as regular basis as it's been happening over the last 5 years? And I am almost laughing or crying at whether or not people think that this is because of the pandemic or what's happening. No, this has been going on for at least 5 years, if not a little bit longer than that. Don't be ridiculous.
Death rate. So that is the dire state we're in. But here's an idea. Maybe it would be a good idea not to have sacked 40,000 social care workers who worked the whole way through the pandemic because they didn't choose to get the vaccine. I believe in personal bodily autonomy, and that shouldn't have happened. But also, if you...
I can't believe I'm saying this, but a part of me actually agrees with their point there. I'd like to know what the thoughts of the patients themselves, the patients themselves are, rather than what this fucking twat thinks about it.
We're going to have a national insurance rise to pay for social care. Maybe give some of that money to social care. We are not going to fix anything in our NHS until we actually...
From the top down, NHS needs reform. We need to kick out a bunch of these fucking private services and bring it back under proper national health service. Medical schools, medical hospital, whatever, teaching hospitals. We need more of those. Put funding into it. Instead of relying on the education, the medical education from abroad. These fucking far right idiots are the ones saying, "Oh, we want less immigrants, but we only want the fuck because they're." Oh, just shut up with your fucking prejudice.
Start paying care workers properly, funding care homes properly, and funding the people who are actually giving the care in people's homes that not only allows them to leave hospital when they've had their treatment, but also not to go into hospital in the first place. It is a Cinderella service, and it's about time we actually started spending the money on the social care. It's not glamorous, it's not a big glamorous hospital or a new cancer unit, but it will actually save lives.
I know what to come begin. Let me just get around you once a little bit. The woman here in the purple jacket.
Thank you. As someone who has been left disabled by long COVID, I was completely fit and healthy before, and now my life as I knew it is unrecognisable. I'm not getting appointments, I'm not getting the help. My GP actually says long COVID clinics are a myth. What we need is multidisciplinary.
Three health secretaries have said, "Oh, we're really proud of the long COVID centres." Well, apparently it's a myth, and that's not according to this woman. It's according to her fucking doctor.
Places where you can go, where you can get help. It's just not happening.
How's it affecting you?
I mean, at my worst, I mean, as you saw, I came in a wheelchair. I'm pushing myself to do what I can, but it affects. It's a blood disease that stops the oxygen getting around your body, which affects any or all of your organs. The press keeps saying it's a respiratory disease. In older people, it tends to be more often respiratory, but in younger people, it tends more often to be.
SARS can attack it can lead to multi-organ failure. Right, the original SARS virus can lead to multi-organ failure. In the worst cases, SARS-CoV-2 has been seen to do similar shit. Fucking cold my ass.
Heart or other stuff. So you're seeing increased numbers of heart attacks, things like that. And it is so urgent. People are being left with no help. When you're alone, you don't have a carer, you don't have the help that you need, you are just stuck in bed. You're not able to do the things you do. I'm actually a founding member of a charity called Long COVID Support. We've been desperately trying to do what we can to help and support people where we can, reading all the peer research papers that are out there, trying to learn, trying to share that information.
Which is what I was doing through
Where is the
the
support from the
pandemic.
experts?
Right.
You know, because that's not, we're the ill people. You know, we're doing our own, you know, we're being the most resilient you can be. And so I have met the most resilient people I've met in my life through this. But we need help. And the constant underfunding of the NHS across the board is disgusting. People are dying. People are killing themselves because they don't want to live a disabled life. And that's another issue. The fact that disabled people are looked less than. You know, we're hardworking. We want to work. We want to do. We want to get on with our lives.
But it's knowing what's going to be right. What's the right job for me now? My qualifications that I got, bricklaying, plastering, carpentry, mean shit to me now. Because I can't go work on a fucking site. I can't trust to bend down to pick up a shovel and not have my back go. And it's not like I can sit here all day and do this all day, because I have to get up sometimes. I have to get up, or even just sitting down for large amounts of time hurts. It doesn't help that I'm such a passionate person, because it means that I move around a lot. You know, because it's all body language. Half of his body language with me. So there isn't going to be anything comprehensive until the issue of health is actually taken seriously by either the Tory party or getting rid of the Tory party and bringing in Labour in. Because this is shit. Yes, funding has gone into the NHS, but it's been essentially stripped considering how the investment should have been for the NHS, given what Labour did and how successful they were with the NHS with their investment. It's just all spend. One of the accusations from the right against Labour is, in this country, against Labour, is, oh, Labour's all spend. No. It's about spending to actually invest. Now, there were many other areas that needed investing in under the last Labour government, but at least they did invest. And the Tories just haven't. They've been investing in their donors.
Lucy, the question that Dr. Aisha was asking originally is in terms of social care and the knock-on impact of the lack of social care and people being stuck in hospital. Now, one of the things that Rishi Sunak, one of his big ideas was the national insurance rise and, of course, the social care levy coming after that. We're not seeing that now. So what happened to that idea and how else are we going to pay for it?
So I think the lady's right to identify that we have backlogs. I think everyone accepts that we had a pandemic and that has pushed the backlogs even further. But to say that we're not funding the NHS isn't accurate.
Yeah, but I'm simply saying that the Prime Minister, when he...
In real terms, the funding for NHS... If your funding for the NHS was adequate, we would not be in this position, you fucking arrogant Tory.
The Chancellor came up with this idea, the social care levy. That idea is now gone.
It has
so
gone. It passed the legislation.
So how is it?
But there will still be money for social care.
How? Where from?
Money for social care, separate to. There's significant record sums.
What does that mean? Significant record amounts. Is it? And where is the money going? Is it going to the NHS and then being invested in the NHS, or is it going to the NHS and being used to pay private services?
Going into the NHS. An increase in the last spending review to
significant record. What does that mean?
NHS funding.
Because it would have raised 13 billion a year, so that's going to come from somewhere else.
I'm sure we'll hear about spending commitments in the spending review and the.
So how do you know that the spending is going to be significant and a record? What? Just exposing lies and lies upon lies.
On the 17th of November. But there are many ways of treating people. So, we have committed money to diagnostic centres. We've got 40 new hospitals. Unfortunately, all 40.
This was the bit that Max pulled up. And do you listen how confident she is when she's just casually trots out, and we're building 40 new hospitals. Listen to the response.
We haven't got 40 new hospitals. It's a load of nonsense.
There are so many different ways.
So did you just say we have 40 new
hospitals?
There
is a commitment to do 40.
Max said it all the other day.
We don't have 40, you just right about that.
It's not even new hospitals.
Once again, the crowd is laughing at you, Tory. This has not been the first time I've watched a BBC Question Time where the audience is laughing at the Tories because they cannot believe the horse shit coming out of the fucking pipe holes.
It's just a refurbished hospital.
This is just nonsense. There are no 40 new hospitals, and you cannot cut local authority budgets by up to 40% and expect people not to get out of hospital. They've got nowhere to go. That's why we've got a social care crisis. So
we're investing. You can get really angry about it, David, but we're investing.
But should we be angry?
What do you mean don't get angry? Into 3, 4, 6, 7. I can't even do that. Fuck's sake, I'm so pissed off I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is why I am unafraid when calling Tories cunts. Because they are arrogant cunts. Charlie Uniform November Tango Sierra means cunts.
We're investing significant funds into the NHS, and we're investing
What does it mean?
Significant funds into social care. But of course,
do you know the numbers? How can you say significant amount when you're not giving us the actual numbers? But this is the Tory trick, you see. They say, "Oh, we're sending in. We're not going to tell you how much. We're just going to tell you it's significant, and it's a record amount of money."
You know, the population is getting older. People need and can receive.
Why is the level of care getting worse?
More support, and they are getting that. We absolutely recognise that there are issues. We absolutely recognise.
Evidently fucking not. And not only that, but the issues have arrived under your tenure, you Tory cunts.
That there are backlogs, and we're committed to dealing with those. But I'm not going to pretend that there are easy answers to these very difficult questions.
I think
quite easy. Actually invest in the NHS. Bring social care under the NHS umbrella. Deprivatise the NHS. Just for starters.
Right. Rishi
Tory
Sunak don't need
cunts.
an election because he's standing by the 2019 manifesto. Now, the Tory manifesto, made a very, very specific commitment to ring-fencing a pot of money for social care. That's the first thing Boris Johnson said on the steps of Downing Street.
Yeah, you had people on the far right trying to say that Johnson's a socialist. No, he's a libertarian and he's a populist. He'll do whatever's popular. But he's also, in that similar vein, reminds me of Adolf fucking Hitler. So
when he came in and going to sort social care out. This has been a cast iron guaranteed commitment. And we thought we had it with national insurance. The fact that that's been taken away and not replaced by anything of such significance is the problem.
I mean, yes. But, see, I would like to see where the money, when they do this, when they do these spending commitments, I would like the government to come out and actually say how, when they do their budgets, I'd like to know how the money is being apportioned when it gets sent to the NHS. Not just the statements of this much is being sent to is being put into the NHS, and that's pretty much all we hear, and social care, and that's pretty much all we hear about it. I want to know the allocations. Are the funds, is it true that most of the funds are going to being outsourced? What's the point in the NHS if you're just going to outsource, you fucking...
Because it means that the backlog that everyone is talking about is just going to remain. People are stuck in hospitals because they don't have a social care plan in place to get out. And the other thing, I'm going to mention the B word in a minute, Brett.
One thing I had to note that I've seen this for ever since I started watching the news a bit more regularly for about, where are we now? Nearly 3 years, 4 years. I mean, I have noticed the amount of, especially on Sky News, the amount of stories that have come out where social care homes, the private social care homes are disgusting, and they're consistently being shut down because of the state of them and the state of the patients in them. Tory government to blame for that, because they, and again, like, oh, we had to talk, like, they had plenty of time to fix the supposed problems from a financial crash, but they didn't bother to do it. Sent their money to their donors, and this country has barely seen any growth because of it. You know, the Tories keep going on about green transition. Oh, we're green Tories. We are, honestly. It's bullshit. At least half of them are in league with the oil and gas companies. Either because they're former employees, or just because they're in league with them anyway.
The other thing that is the problem is the vast number of vacancies within hospitals and within social care. We need actually to encourage more people to come here to take up those posts, fully qualified people. Otherwise, this backlog isn't going to get cleared.
There's a lot of hands up. I just want to get around quite a few if I can. The woman in the yellow and black dress and glasses, yeah.
So I'm a consultant psychiatrist, and there's something I need to let you know, Lucy, which is this. We've been, in mental health care, we've been chronically underfunded by 55% for years. We have a massive workforce crisis. Junior doctors are leaving their...
Over and over again. And this is not me complaining at her, by the way. Not the person talking right now. This is complaining at the Tories again. And one of the most upsetting things is Owen Jones, I don't agree with everything he says, but when he went to the Tory conference and that he tried to challenge that Tory cunt about, you know, the actual poverty going on. He's like, I don't see it. I haven't seen it myself. Don't see it. You choose not to see it. You ignore it because you're an ignorant cunt, like the rest of you Tory bastards.
Demoralised. 40% of them want to leave, not just the NHS, which actually, Julia, is one of the best health services in the country, in the world.
Apart from for saving lives.
Well, it...
Her and her perfect teeth need to get them kicked in. But you're going to have people, you shouldn't be advocating violence. I don't care. I actually don't care. This woman is incendiary. And she knows she is. But because she's got all this funding and she knows who she backs, she just doesn't care. Oh. People like to say that I'm incendiary. That I piss the people off. Fuck you. This cunt is just...
It's a very, very, very good health service, but we have been chronically underfunded. They want to leave. They don't want to leave the NHS. They want to leave the country, and because they are some of the most
glibness of the way she said it as well
in the world, people are begging for them. Senior psychiatrists and senior doctors like myself.
It's like she couldn't wait. It's like she'd written that. It's like Julia had written that down. She'd found that little hot statement before she come in on here, and she's like, I've got to say that. Oh, that's excellent. I've got to say that. She's that thick.
And then after this,
not along, but make yourself look like you're intelligent.
And it means that we can't provide the care that we are trained to do. We don't need lots of new hospitals. We need new facilities. We need facilities to be enhanced and improved. But what we really need is for people to accept that there is more demand now than ever because of the pandemic.
Population is larger.
Mental health conditions affect 75%.
That's the other thing the Tories, I swear, refuse to take into account, right? Our population is larger than it was when Labour was in charge. The world's population is larger. for like 2 billion.
To them start before the age of 25. If we do not help,
My point by the way, is that they're spending an investment for healthcare, whether that's mental health, social care, or just NHS in general, needed to go up, needed to be in line with the increase in population, not setting back fucking loads of money for rich people. It's disgusting that whilst people have gotten poorer and poorer over the last 12 years, the richest have got richer and richer. It is disgusting. And it's even more disgusting when you get people defending it. Oh, the hard-earned... It's not hard-earned money! Shut up with that bullshit now. Enough of it. It's not hard-earned money at all. Enough of the bullshit. These top fucking 5%. It's not hard-earned money. Fuck you.
People, if we cannot provide, something to narrow that treatment gap, then unfortunately we're going to have a whole heap of adults who aren't able to achieve their potential. They're not going.
Unfortunately, what this woman, the results this woman's talking about, are happening now. They're already happening.
To be able to contribute to the economy.
If it's already happening, can you imagine what it's likely to, how much worse it's more likely to get?
Man here in the glasses.
Thank you. Firstly, completely agree what's happening to the Maudsley is horrific. That transforms over into teaching as well, as the mental health does affect the children. My question is for you, unfortunately.
The Tory.
I don't see the figures. So obviously you sort of the 17th of November for the figures to come out. So a simple question which you must know is, what was the last budget allocation to the NHS? So we can...
Yeah, what are these significant record amounts, woman? And that's not me being sexist.
For this potential 40 new hospitals,
it's not meant to be.
On the 13th of November. From what you're saying, it should be increased significantly and should be allocated.
By the way, right, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian, it doesn't matter what race you are, right? Whether you're fucking Slav, whether you're Anglo-Saxon, whether you're Nordic, whether you're Celt, whether you're, you're British Celt, whether you're European Celt, whether you're fucking Romani. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which sex you are. Male, female, trans, pan, I don't care. If you're being a fucking idiot, I will tell you, with no fear. Because I don't care about your feelings if you're not gonna bother about about trying to treat me with some intelligence. And then you'll get these same people going on about, the people complaining about wanting to feel equal. But these are the people that will complain when I call them stupid. Double fucking standards. Who are these idiots to think that they have the right to decide what I have to think?
To the NHS. Do you know what the last figures were?
I'm not sure if it's entirely fair to ask you off the top of your head if you know what the last figure was, given that's not your
She just
department.
relies on significant record.
I mean, don't forget there's inflation.
Do you reckon it relies on the words?
Sometimes when politicians talk about the budget getting bigger, often it's because of inflation. It's not necessarily just because they've been given more money in real terms.
What I can tell you is that every single department in the last spending review got an increase in its budget. And so the NHS, in real terms? The NHS got it.
Yeah, that's a good. That's Fiona, brilliant. Is it in real terms? Is it in real terms?
An increase in its budget.
In real terms?
Third time.
Because that's what matters.
Yeah, of course that's what matters. But I can't tell the gentleman what's going to be in the spending review.
It's just coming up with bullshit. It's all crap.
View, and therefore whether it's going to go up or it's going to go down. But we have invested significant amounts.
No. Where is if you've invested all this significant amount, where's the payoff? Again, I will reiterate, under the last Labour government, there was payoff from the investment put into the public sector. Where is the payoff from your supposed investment, you Tory liar?
But we're now reading that every department's been asked to look at 10 to 15% cuts in its budget, or savings in its budget.
Well, you are
Tory
reading
liar,
that,
lying Tory, it doesn't really matter which way round.
I would just like to say I retired from medicine 10 years ago.
Because we are well served for NHS practitioners here.
And I think that not an awful lot has changed with bed blockers, because we were having to cancel elective surgery patients because we couldn't get patients home.
And this is what did you say, 15 years ago?
10 years ago. I
sorry,
retired 10 years ago, and this happened before. And a lot of the problem actually came with the private financial initiatives for the new hospitals. And I've only just heard this week where I live.
Yes, I will say that was under the Blair government. But it was the structure left to him. So, not only that, but again, the standards a lot higher. If there's investment, if the amount of investment is going in, where is the payoff? Given how much they say they're supposedly investing, our services should be better. What we're seeing is the same thing that happened with Russia, with Ukraine. They say they've been investing those into their military. Their military has one of the highest budgets of any country in the world, and yet look how shite they performed in Ukraine. It's the same thing with the Tories and their politics and the NHS and the rest of the fucking country. If there is this level of investment, where is the payoff?
A community hospital that had 2 wards, 10 beds in each ward. So where are the patients going to go who have had hips and need rehabilitation if they can't go home?
Hip replacement.
So nothing has changed in the last 10 years, actually.
And the woman at the very back with blonde hair.
Are the Tory government truly committed to a national health service, and how do we believe you?
If people didn't know this by now, then I feel sorry. I kind of feel sorry for you in a way. The Tories didn't even like the original idea of the NHS when the Liberals tried to bring it around rather than first. The Liberals were the ones to bring up the idea of a sort of NHS, but their idea could only take fruit after it could go through the Labour Party, because the Tories wanted profit out of it, whereas Labour wanted it to be for the good of the people of this country, of these islands.
Okay, I'll come back to Lucy on that. And the man in the blue sweater there. Yes, you.
So I also work for the NHS.
Oh my goodness, I don't know how this happened.
I wonder how it
It's
happened.
incredibly underfunded and massively understaffed, and staff morale throughout the service is at an all-time low, I would say.
And why is that?
Underfunding, overworked, long hours, and actually, I think a lack of...
Everyone of the people in this fucking audience that has said they work in the NHS has said how shit it's been in the last 10 years and how it is right now. If there is record investment, why is it so bad for them?
Appreciation in many areas. And I'd just like to ask Julia what you meant by the NHS is very good at everything except saving lives.
On an awful lot of the metrics, the NHS is really, really successful. Per pound spent, we have really, really good outcomes in this country. Sadly, when it comes to actually saving lives, because of the delays we've got, and completely accept the issues over cuts and staffing and morale and all of that and the long-term issues.
You're talking about things like cancer outcomes.
Yeah, but everything across the board. Heart disease, diabetes, cancer, pretty much everything, we actually have much higher death rates. Your chance of survival of the biggest diseases in the world are lower in this country.
What is the reason for that, Julia? Julie, whatever your fucking stupid name is, I hate you. What is the point?
To the most comparable European countries. And that is a reality now. There are different systems, there are different amounts of money we spend. It's actually weirdly quite an
What point are you making?
health service per pound spent, but we're not getting the outcomes we need. The sort of waiting list that we have in this country for getting to see a consultant if you've got suspected cancer or heart disease or diabetes, they are unheard of in large parts of the Western world.
That means it's a resources issue. It's not a care quality.
Exactly.
It's to do with resources and funding.
There are some countries that have similar outcomes, have similar spending as a percentage of GDP, but actually have better outcomes.
Yes, but
I think we should be open-minded about what would be the best way of
but you're not maligning the quality.
I do hope you're not trying to advocate an American way of doing things. I really hope not.
Of care that you get in the NHS, it's the lack of resources.
Not maligning anyone. My mother was an NHS GP. I'm not maligning anyone.
That doesn't fucking matter. There are plenty of people whose relatives have worked in the NHS who don't give a fuck about the NHS. Because they think it's because all they can see is it's not run properly, so they don't see the value in it. Well, if you saw it when it was being run properly, then you know its value.
In the NHS, it's getting to the point of actually getting treated. The longer you wait till you get treated, the less chance you have of living.
One of the tricks the Tories have been trying to play for a long while is to make the NHS worse so that we are less likely to see the value in it and aren't as likely to kick off when they think they can finally get rid of it. They want us to pay for our own healthcare because they want the profits. They want us to be America, the 54th state or whatever.
Okay, there's so many hands up. I'm going to take a couple more. Yes, the woman in the front here in the glasses, in the dark sweater.
So, Jeremy Hunt was responsible for a lot of the cuts and efficiency savings that were done at the NHS, and now he's our chancellor. So, is the NHS really safe?
Okay, that's the second question. Is the NHS safe? It's the woman in the white shirt with the glasses there. Don't tell me you work in the NHS as well.
No, I'm education actually, and I don't know about the NHS budget, but I do know the education budget will not be back up to 2010 levels in real terms. So you can't say you've added more money to the budget when, in real terms, with inflation, energy rises, salary increases, 90% of schools are reporting they will run out of money next year. It's an absolute crisis. We're also suffering recruitment issues. Something drastically has to happen, and we're being told, education. Our fifth education secretary in the last year, being told that they're also going to have to make cuts in the education.
It's like a joke. 3 prime ministers, 4 chancellors, and 5 education secretaries. What the fuck?
Budget. It is just not possible. And levelling up, you're the levelling up secretary. The answer to levelling up is the answer around that and social justice and tackling the disadvantage gap starts with education. It needs to be a priority, absolutely. And I can't help wondering, and I know we're in a private school here, that if more of the Conservative Party children went to state schools, they'd care about it a lot more.
Okay, now there's a lot in that, but you've been asked.
Posh people won't like that statement. But
is the NHS safe in the Conservative government's hands?
No.
Yes, and but let me answer another question, which
Well,
was,
answer
how
that
do we
one.
know? Well, the answer is yes. But another.
David Lammy,
sounds like they need a bit
utterly
of
Okay, so
perplexed.
how do we know? So I would say, judge us on what we say and on what we do. So we have consistently talked about the importance of the NHS. We've consistently said we will preserve and safeguard the NHS. But what have we done? We have also put record funding into the NHS, and we can't run hospitals.
What does what? You weren't able to answer that guy's question earlier, where he asked you exactly how much are you talking about when you say significant and record amounts. Because I reckon you're chatting shit.
So hospitals are run by
if you haven't seen this, that was David Lammy. He is listening and he cannot believe what he's hearing.
NHS, they're not run by the government or by ministers. And things, we need to ensure that those are run well and continue to improve them. We are going to have to make some difficult decisions in the budget.
And why is that, pray? Why are you Tories having to do a second round of austerity? Oh, it's because you fucked up. That's why.
And the government doesn't have any money other than your money. And we do need to balance the books.
Really? So the money that goes for their posh meals that they complain about. Really? Entitled bitch.
And we do need to get to a position of fiscal responsibility.
No, I really don't care about insulting.
I can absolutely assure you that schools, one of the reasons I went into politics, because I believe every child should have every opportunity across the country.
Then why are you in the Tory party? How have the Tories done that? How? Where is the material benefit? Who can point to it? Legitimately as well, not just some fucking bullshit that is fucking confirmation bias. It turns out to be confirmation bias.
And we should ensure that they have fulfilling lives. Education and healthcare are absolutely at the top of our agenda.
I just hope that we can get back to a politics that isn't just about sound bites. I've been in politics 22 years. You get these lines, we put record funding in. What does record funding really mean? If you know in real terms there's been a cut, and there has been a cut. And actually in the NHS, you also have the botched Lansley reforms that messed up a system that was working very well in 2010.
He was a previous Health Secretary, Andrew Lansley.
Yeah, so we've had 12 years of this. And it's not working. We went from a 4-hour wait in A&E. Now you can be waiting 12 hours. And if you ring 999, you might not get an ambulance. You've got to get there yourself. That's happened on your watch. The gap between children in state schools and those in private schools has grown. It's grown in terms of the average cost of a pupil in a state school in London is about £8,000. If you go to a posh public school, it's about 43,000. That's unacceptable. You've done nothing.
What? And these fucking bastards have the temerity, yes, the fucking temerity to say to the government, "Oh, we're charities. We need you to give us these tax breaks because we're charities." Fuck off.
About it, nothing, and you've had 12 years, and you sit there with record, significant funds. Record means nothing, significant means nothing. What's happened is a cut, a
Right
real
out of my
terms
mouth.
cut in the life chances of British people and British children.
Can I just respond to that?
Fucking yes, David Lammy. Fucking yes.
So the basic standards of education, judged by OECD standards, in terms of underlying numeracy and literacy, have gone up under this government, under the reforms that Michael Gove put in that were then implemented by successive secretaries of state. So more people have gone to university. University is not totally the answer, so we also need to improve technical education. There was an announcement on technical education.
I'm sorry. Again, I've got to break. They're not. The Tories are very good at this. When you compare it to the growth of the population, it does not match up. The standards of education compared to the growth of the population during the noughties was a lot better than it's been during the 2010s. Blatant differences. People have been complaining about it otherwise.
Education today, because we absolutely need to ensure
I mean,
that this
probably
country
would,
is ready
actually,
and
but-
has the skills.
Have you
for
been to an FE college recently?
I have many.
FE has been cut to the bone. Look what you've done to adult learning. Where are the night schools?
That's further
The girls
education.
are in the past.
So well, there's an adult skills lifetime guarantee brought in on education for adults.
Can I just say how frustrating it is to have people sitting here who happily locked children in their homes,
Oh,
in their
shut
bedrooms for
up.
the best part of 18 months, telling me that they care about poor children's education.
Julia.
You're an outrage, both
Oh,
of you, an outrage.
fuck you. So what? So what? You'd rather let the virus take a fucking rampage through the nation then? Yes, lockdown did damage, but I reckon not doing lockdown would have been worse. This idea that lockdown was the evil is a fucking fallacy. Yes, it was bad. It could have been much worse. It could have been a lot better. It could have been done a lot better. Could have been handled so much better, but we had Boris Johnson, so beggars can't be choosers on that one, I suppose. Although that was the guy that people chose, apparently, so apparently we can. I don't like this. No, it's not that I don't like. I hate when I hear, oh, lockdown was the evil. It's like the pandemic wasn't serious. It's like hundreds of thousands of people have not died due to SARS-CoV-2.
Right. I am getting. You've got loads of you got your hands up, but as I say, I want to try and get around the questions that you submitted when you arrived here this evening. So I'm going to come to another one from Bajina Jelak, if I pronounce that right. I hope so.
Well done. I'll just stop all latest protests heading their own course.
No.
So let's just remind ourselves, so Just Stop Oil members, and they are a group that basically want to stop new licenses and production of fossil fuels in this country. They threw, I think it was tomato soup at Van Gogh sunflowers. They drew themselves to road, targeted luxury car showrooms. I think they put some cream cake or something like that over King Charles's waxwork at Two Swords. Armando.
I'm always very, very nervous about endorsing or even listening to someone advocating even more bans on protests. I mean, what this campaign did, if it transgressed the law, they'll get charged. The laws are in place.
But is it hurting their cause? That's Virginia's question.
Well, if they're smart, they'll soon stop, because I think it's worked because we're all talking about it and they've made their point. If they're smart, they'll move on to some other clever way of making their point. And I would like to cut them some slack, especially younger people, because, you know, the report came out today from the UN saying it's too late. climate change, we've left it too late. We've got Rishi Sunak deciding not to go to the climate conference in Egypt. You know, and growing up as a teenager or a 20-something, thinking this is what we've passed on to them, it's no wonder they are frustrated, they're angry, they're confused, they're annoyed, they want to do something imaginative and bold. Yes, it's annoying, and I'm sure I'd lose my patience.
The whole thing with protests, it's not supposed to be convenient.
You know, if we have, as we have at the moment, a Home Secretary who decides that everything is political and that you have to then introduce boutique laws specifically designed to ban a particular type of protest, then I think we're on a slippery slope. I mean, look what's happening in Moscow and in Russia. We don't want that.
Exactly.
We have laws here.
A point I have made over and over and over and over again.
They'll be charged. But the idea that we can't protest, there's a new law saying that we mustn't make noise when we protest. It's a protest. Noise is part of...
Another thing that I've had to go at about, it's a protest, but now apparently if you're too noisy you can be arrested. I hate these people. I actually hate these people. Not this guy. This guy's talking sense. These Tory bastards. And people just kept voting him in.
Of the definition. So I'm very, very reluctant about advocating...
Oh, I don't like Corbyn. Tell me why.
Any further kind of restriction.
At least with Phil from A Different Bias, he can actually articulate a reason why he didn't exactly like Corbyn. Like, I might not necessarily agree with all of it. As fair amount, I do agree with him on, despite the fact that I, still like Corbyn. But I ask people, why didn't you want to vote for Corbyn? Oh, because I didn't like him. Why? Oh, I'm not going to explain. It's just, I just, fuck you. That's just a bullshit argument, because you know that you've just followed what the media said and you can't admit it. That's what happened. You followed what the right media said, just like with Brexit, and you can't admit that that's what happened. That is how your free will has been taken away from you. You can't admit it. It's not a conspiracy. It's just, this is what happens. Especially on the right. Donald Trump fans, for fuck's sake.
I do think they're harming their cause. I completely disagree with you, Armando. I don't think they do have a just cause. I don't want to just stop oil. I want to keep oil. I want to keep gas and fossil fuels. The reason why we live the lives we do in the West in the 21st century is, thank God, for fossil fuels, which delivered the Industrial Revolution. I would like that Industrial Revolution.
I wonder, does she lobby for these people? Is she getting money from BP or Shell or something like that? Or is she just doing this because she's a fucking twat? And that, again, I will reiterate from my other video, Americans, that is twat, not twat. Twat. But either way, is she just a twat? Does she truly believe what she's talking about? Fucking asshole.
Revolution delivered to everyone around the world, the billions of people who survive on, a couple of dollars a day and are scrabbling around to make a life for themselves and keep their children alive.
So, Julia, when you've got the UN saying, as Armand is referring to, that there's no credible pathway now.
We didn't have to use these things before. And now we're finding more efficient ways to use energy. But you want it to be like it was in the olden days because you're a fucking idiot. Again, not sexist, she just is.
Now,
it's a complete load of nonsense. That's not backed up by the latest IPCC.
Well, listen,
It actually is. I actually did check it out. She's a liar.
May lead to 2.8 degrees.
It won't.
Warming this century.
Those climate models have been, they have been exposed as complete nonsense again and again and again. They are the most
Again, I know exactly what these graphs that this bitch is talking about because I've had other people, family and friends, and people who are just politically opposite to me try to show me graphs that proves the scientists don't actually believe that the world is on fire. It's bullshit because the graphs they use are taken out of context and all it does is feed their confirmation bias. Not only that, but a lot of the reviews come out by so-called scientists are done by actually done by think tanks, not scientists. And these reports are quoting scientists out of context. Go and read it yourselves. Go and check it out. I mean, she'll say the same thing to you. She'll say the same thing as I'm saying. Go and check it out yourself. But the thing is when you do go and check it out, you see she's a bullshitting liar. There's no truth to what she's saying. It's all confirmation bias.
extreme end of the scientific models contained in those IPCC reports. But the point is, even if it were true, even if it were, would that necessarily be an issue? But that's aside the point. For the
Yes, it would be an issue. It is an issue. This is the kind of moron that supports Trump, by the way.
Kind of protests we're seeing. Because I think the issue here is you've got a lot of very entitled, middle-class people who've led a very nice...
Oh, like yourself?
Do we know they're middle-class people?
They pretty much are, actually, yes.
Like yourself?
We do. They want to stop other...
The crowd, looking at her with incredulity, I'm not fucking surprised. She's middle class herself. Even if she wasn't brought up that way, although I'm not sure. She seems like she was. She certainly is now. So she's talking, once again, she is talking out of her arse.
Other people living good lives. Yeah. If you want
Have
to
you been
have,
checking them out individually,
if you want to have limits on people's ability to access fuel, you want to make it more expensive to get a plane abroad.
Not necessarily. If we again, David Lammy, I'm with you, dude. And the confident way she comes out with this bullshit. It's the same thing that Jacob Rees-Mogg does. He comes out, he makes himself sound intelligent by sounding confident and all that whilst he's saying this bullshit. But that's just it. It's all bullshit.
To use a car to heat your home, you are going to be harming
poorer
people, and you're going to be harming poorer people in the developing world. It might be these people are not
the
just
audience
I think
laugh
they're
at her.
tantruming toddlers who've clearly never been told no by their parents. I think it's time we told them no. I think they are deeply, deeply immoral in what they're doing.
It's the developing world that's saying...
Those people laughing at what's his name? Armando Iannucci or Iannucci. I reckon he's pointing at. He can see that these people are laughing at her. I wonder if she even realizes that people laugh at her. Are laughing at her every time I've seen her on something else that's not her Talk TV or GB News or whatever it is. People are laughing at her because she's a twat.
This has got
The
to
world
stop.
isn't saying
It's the
this.
developing
They're
world.
really
hurts my
not.
brain.
They're really not. The world is not on fire, and the world...
the increase in the amount of wildfires in America, Spain, Russia, fucking Russia, experienced record highs that it has not, I don't think it has ever seen. And you're trying to tell me that the world is not heating up. Fuck's sake. This is what David Lammy is doing, by the way. They just won't accept what's going on because they don't like it. Doesn't fit their worldview. It doesn't fit how they see the world. So, nope, that's not how it's happening. Despite the fact that that is exactly what's happening.
The world is not going to die, and we're not going to die. This is catastrophizing stuff that is not actually in the scientific sections.
Yes, it is!
The IPCC.
It actually is. I have actually read these reports, and it actually is. This woman is stupid. She's parroting Trump, and it's really funny because actual scientists were there in front of Trump saying to him, "Look, sir, if we don't do something, it's going to get worse." And he's there going, "No, it ain't. You're wrong."
Reports. It's not.
And there wasn't a pandemic.
And it is.
Exactly.
Of course there was a pandemic. Of course there was a pandemic.
Science is all subjective, and it's...
No, science should be objective, which is why
Yes,
you shouldn't have
yes.
politicized statements
Yes.
about science.
Oh, this woman is hurting my back because I am so livid. Oh, what? Oh, is she a living embodiment of an oxymoron?
99.9% of the science tells us that the climate is facing an utter catastrophe.
Yes, it does.
You should read some of the scientific reports.
I have,
Don't back up their political
it
statements.
doesn't say what you're saying, you retard.
Very, very sadly, because of this point of view in the Conservative Party.
I'm not in the Conservative Party.
No, but because of the point of view that exists.
Thank the
Our
gods
Prime
for David
Minister
Lammy in this
announced
on this
today
panel.
that despite us chairing COP, he will not be going to the next COP in Egypt. And that's why these young people are on the street. And can I say, I long for a Labour government, if only for one thing, because we will not be granting new licences for oil and gas. Because we're serious.
There are more efficient ways of providing electricity, especially for rural areas. Take, for example, all these offshore wind farms that and even onshore wind farms that are in the countryside. Why siphon that off for just the cities? I think there should be a reform to the national grid where it is actually regional, and solar, wind, and hydroelectric generators that are near, that are closer to rural communities than they are any of the cities, should be going to those rural communities, not to the cities. And as they have to go through a distribution centre anyway, for it to...
And look, I remember protesting when I was young against apartheid. I remember protesting against the poll tax. We are a mature democracy
Supposed to
defending
be.
freedom in Europe. Of course, there must be a right to protest. We don't need any more laws. Absolutely right, the laws exist. I don't personally support stopping ambulances being able to get down the road and cementing yourself to the ground and that sort of thing. But the right to protest must be sacrosanct in a civilized democracy, and we should not let them take it away.
All right, a lot of hands up. Women there in the blue top, yes.
I almost don't want to give credence to what Julia said, because I think a lot of us here do not believe it.
Oh, in that case, it must be wrong.
I'm interested to know if you want to live in a world with
wrong.
fossil fuels, the sort of lives that your children and children's
100%.
children are going to lead, if that's the case. I think my question is more, what do the panel think is the best way to, given that Rishi Sunak is not attending COP, given that the UN report has said that there's no credible pathway to get below 1.5,
She don't want to know what you're
how do
fucking
we
saying, Julia, when she wants the
incentivise
rest of the
politicians
panel
to
saying.
think long term
We know you
and not
bullshit
focus on short term party political infighting, and actually focus on the things that are really, really going to affect our generations?
Okay, woman here in the stripy t-shirt at the front.
I think it's a bit ridiculous to say that like climate change is not as bad as it is, because did we not all experience this summer where we got 40-degree heat? Like, that's unheard of. And
And yes, these things have happened in the past, but again, the more extreme weather is hitting more and more frequently. This is it can be proved to be linked to climate change. So Julia Hartley-Brewer can stick it up her fucking ass.
also the floods that have been happening in Pakistan, like 30 million people.
Oh, yeah. These people are fucking dying right now. What do you want about? No, what do you want about, woman? This didn't happen.
Displaced, like
30 years ago as well.
Yeah, climate.
Right. Yes, it happened 30 years ago, yes. It is happening with more frequency now. Bitch.
Refugees is like that's in our future. It's really immediate, and I think this summer should have shown everybody that we thought maybe it's going to be in a few 30 years time, 2050, but it's happening right now, and I think we really need to take action.
It's called weather. Women.
She must be a lobbyist. She must be being paid by these people, I swear.
Julia, you know that the consensus of you know that the consensus of scientists, these things are happening more often. I mean, I don't think that is in dispute.
No, actually, the IPCC report.
Past 5 years, hottest on record, for example.
There is actually not consensus on the idea that actually a lot of the extreme weather.
There is largely a consensus amongst majority of scientists, which means that is a consensus. Is it an absolute? No. Because there are always idiots out there, and someone who's got to be a contrarian. But you are an idiot.
Events are happening more often.
Okay, I'll leave that with you.
They're not.
Fuck you. Yes, they are. Fuck you.
I can send you the data.
Oh, shut up!
I find your denial shocking, and I find your judgment, which is pretty ignorant on people who protest, very insulting, actually, as someone who's protested all my life. And it is a human right that we must not. It's a democratic human right.
Yeah, I support your right to protest.
Great. But your judgment of who I'm definitely working class, and it's quite insulting that you think. Anyway, to get to my point, I'm going to be going to a demonstration on Saturday, the March of the Mummies, and I'm wondering if I'm likely, possibly in anything up to 5 years' time, to get a tag
for having gone to the march, because that's apparently on the cards, and scarily
You're talking
on
about the public order bill, which
Yeah.
is going through at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, let's ask the person we have here from the government. So Lucy, the question. Let's get back to the original one, which is: Are Just Stop
This is
Oil's
pretty
latest
brutal.
protests home?
I've heard some. I've watched a couple of Question Times, and they've been they've let Tories get away with shit. This is definitely not. I mean, it's not like people. It's not like people aren't challenging. I was up until now. My brain was going in the direction of, I cannot believe they got this twat on here. But at this point, I'm actually thankful that they did get her on. For the simple fact is that we can show just how stupid that mentality is. It is absolutely stupid. And ignorant and grotesque.
Their own cause, but then also we've heard a lot about legal disincentives to protest at all, and how do we incentivise politicians to think long term when we've got Rishi Sunak, for example, not going to COP27?
So lots of points there. So I think it's absolutely right that people should have a voice. They should be able to express their voice. They should be able to campaign and bring things to the attention of decision makers. As an MP, people are writing to me the whole time with their campaigns and bringing them to my attention. And I think that is part of living in a democracy, and I welcome it. But I do think that when campaigners start to disrupt businesses going about...
Protests are not supposed to be convenient to anyone.
Their work, building the economy, when they disrupt people. We've all talked about ambulances and 4-hour
pretty much
waits
everyone in
and
that
our
audience is
NHS,
looking at her with
disrupting
contempt,
ambulances, getting
just as
sick
much
people to
contempt as they were
hospital,
giving to
stopping
that
people going to
Julia
school,
bitch.
then I think there's a problem, and I think that we need to act and tackle that. Now, the reason is that the government is absolutely listening.
No,
to
it
the
isn't.
issue of climate change.
If it was, then the protests would not have got more extreme, would they? Major correlation, actual correlation, not just a confirmation bias on my part.
It's not just listening, it's acted on it. So we were one of the
bullshit
first major countries to legislate for net zero by 2050.
So why is the Prime Minister not going to COP27?
Well, I'll come on to that. So we have reduced our carbon emissions by 40% since 1990, faster than any other Western country. And so we are acting. So we hear and we're acting on it. To come on to the point about the Prime Minister, I think the UK has been leading in this sphere. Not just in
so that gives us the right to sit out, does it?
Presidency, but overall. And in fact, the Prime Minister, when he was Chancellor, led on this issue as well.
No, he didn't. It was
brought
Alex
together
Sharma.
Financial institutions, and he's committed to the UK being the world's first net zero financial centre. So he's absolutely on this issue.
Why is he not going? Let's get to that.
He's not going because at the moment we've discussed and highlighted that we've got a fiscal statement on the 17th of November. Obviously, he needs to prepare for that so that we have domestic stability. But
So this highly intelligent person called Rishi Sunak isn't able to prepare for that and do this really important thing called COP.
That government ministers across the board at all levels of seniority will be attending COP. As a transport minister, I involved in my portfolio as of 2 days ago was decarbonisation of transport and the future of transport, and I was going to attend COP. And I am sure there will be ministers at every level attending COP, as well as Alok Sharma, our COP president. I don't think the fact that the Prime Minister himself isn't
Prime Minister
going in any way
removed
diminishes
Alok
our
Sharma as the
commitment.
But it's
president
the
of the
message
COP.
it sends, because if we were the president, people look to us to set an example. So if he's saying, no, I'm not going because it's not quite high enough in my entry. If Alok Sharma, I think today was told he no longer needs to attend, is allowed to attend cabinet. So that's a diminishing of his role. In the election campaigns they had over the summer, Liz Truss was talking about, banning solar panels in fields. And he was talking about banning wind power out in the sea. I think those positions have now been reversed. But it's the message, the signals they sent out, which is that they're sending out confused signals about how high a priority to give to this.
Okay, let me move on. I'm going to take one more question, which we've just about got time. We've got 4 or 5 minutes left on the programme. And having you here on the panel, Armando, seemed remiss if we didn't take this question. So, Anton Kravchenko.
Right. Mr. Iannucci, if the thick of it were written today, would it be even funnier, or would it just be not funny at all?
Fortunately, I'm not writing the thick of it today. Look, if we wrote an episode where we got through 3 prime ministers in 3 months and 5 education secretaries, and there must be, I'm sure there's someone who wakes up today not knowing and not remembering whether or not they're the health secretary, because everything's been so fast. If Suella Braverman goes, I pity poor Grant Shapps, who was Home Secretary for 1 week. I think in the thick of it, he'd be presented with a Swiss clock, on the hour, a woman comes out and a man comes in, and a woman comes out and a man comes in, one of those things. I think, I'm glad we stopped 10 years ago. It was seen as a warning, not a prediction. I'd like to change that now. I wish I could write something which all is well, but I'm not minded to do so at the moment.
And Julie, there's been a lot of talk, given there has been so much churn and so much instability recently, about have we got a lesser class of politicians now than we used to, or are we just nostalgic about the old days and we always think that things have changed?
I think people now go into politics straight from university. They become members of a think tank. This is what the thick of it picked up on, the way the country's run by lots of 24-year-olds who've got degrees in PPE from Oxford and then become a researcher for an MP, and then join a think tank and then become an MP themselves, and are devising furlough schemes at the age of 32.
Yeah, I know that's not true for you. Let me just ask you. I'll come to you. I'll come to you, Lucy. Hang on.
Well, are politicians uniquely now? I think political satire is dead. I think we can safely say that. I'm going to say something that's going to be among the many unpopular things I've said tonight. And I include both the politicians here, and actually most of the politicians I've met. I've been working in political world for about 25 years. Actually, most politicians go into politics to try and make the country better. We may disagree with what they want to do a lot of the time. We may not like their policies. We may not like their personalities.
For once, no, for the second time in the space of 2 hours and 3 minutes, I think, I actually agree with this idiot. A clock's got to be right once, at least twice a day.
The time. But actually, I think most politicians are actually quite good people. Not all of them. Goodness me, there are some horrors. But most politicians, and we may not agree on many policies, but I'm right.
Shit.
But this is the thing is actually most politicians, I think, are trying to do the right thing, and I do think we get the politicians we deserve.
We get the politicians we deserve, David.
I think something has happened in the UK. David
Brexit.
Cameron asked me to lead a review on the criminal justice system. It was a cross-party moment that put the issues of race above the day-to-day of politics. Something has happened, frankly, since we had that vote to leave the European Union, and social media and all the rest of it. It does make things like the thick of it seem, you couldn't do them today, because it's just, when you've got a Home Secretary saying, I can't wait to get on the front of the Telegraph with, I sent them back. I sent them across. You've got a Home Secretary who's bullying. It's just sort of endless every single day, over and over and over again. And I'd love to get back to a stage where we normalise the tone, where we could agree on some things and make them happen. And it wasn't just silly sound bites.
Well, we don't call politicians scum.
There was actual action. action.
Your deputy party leader
to
called
deliver for the
Tories
people.
scum.
To deliver for the people. That's what I want.
Lucy.
So
Yes, I'm going
I
to.
think
That was really quite funny, right? You had Julia there. That, yes, because Tories are scum. But as you've been an ignorant twat this entire episode, I'm just going to ignore you. It's pretty much a response from David Lammy.
Politicians are derided quite a lot. I'd just like to mention.
And how does that feel as a politician?
I
mean, I'm not in any sense having a go at
yeah,
you,
well,
but I
it's
genuinely
not
want to have
great
that
to
feel.
be doing a job that you've chosen to do, as Julia said, to help people. And people don't understand that, but I get it, I totally get it. But I'd just like to, my colleagues on my side, and I'm sure on the Labour benches as well, have come from a wide variety of backgrounds. So I was a barrister for 17 years before I became an MP. But we have doctors, we have nurses, we have small business owners, we have a postman, we've got someone who was in a band and a hairdresser, a lot of people who've served in the forces. We have a wide variety of expertise that represents the whole of the UK. And I think that's a fantastic thing. And I'd also like to end on a positive note, because I do think that we now have a government that is serious. I think it's much more stable.
You can't say
and
that
is going to
with a straight
stabilise
face
the economy.
when
And I
you got
must say,
Suella
to give
Braverman
credit to the Labour
back
Party, I just think
after a
Minister's
week's
questions
holiday.
that we had on Wednesday,
Essentially.
there was a serious debate across the
So I'm
House.
sorry.
And
No.
I've got an optimistic outlook for the future.
You might
Right.
do, but you're
Optimism has broken out on the panel here at Question Time. That doesn't happen very often. Our hour is up. Thank you very much to the panel for coming here this evening. Thank you to our audience here in Dulwich. Great to see you. And of course,
I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. I watched a little bit of it at the beginning, and I was like, yep, got to record this. I am this. Ooh. Like I said though, ordinarily I'd be thinking to myself, why? And I've heard Max and others say this as well. Why get these idiots on? Well, for me personally, I can see the value in that they think that everyone else is going along, that the majority of people believe what they believe. And it's just proving how stupid they are. It's really funny to watch these people prove themselves stupid. It's embarrassing, but it's really funny. I do
of course, thank you to you
apologise
at home for watching. If you can't,
for the rambling, ranty nature of all of this. I couldn't help myself. Ow. And there was no way I was getting to. There was no way I was going to get some sleep without getting this out, because if you hadn't guessed, I hate Tories and the right, especially if they're not centre. If they're further than if they're anything further than centre right, I can't find anything to agree on, because you just don't. You take fact. Don't get me wrong. The left do this as well, and I've had to pick people up on the left for doing this exact same thing, in taking facts out of context and thinking that they can use that as an argument. It's not an argument. I don't care what you say, because it's a straw man argument. It's probably not the right terminology, but I hope you get my meaning. I hope everyone's enjoyed this, my little rant. I hope everyone is able to have a good day whilst I'm trying to catch up on sleep. This is it. There are some important takeaways here for me. One was the reaction in general to Julia was just genuine incredulity. Not like the only times I heard people clap, like attempt to applaud her, there was a couple of people, and even that, in the end, she wasn't really getting applause. And then the Tory, like the amount of people that laughed at her nearly every time she opened her mouth because they knew what she was saying was lies. There was substantial support for David Lammy. I don't know if it's just because of the way they did things here, but substantial support for Lammy and Armando Iannucci. So, but as time, as month goes on, we'll see what the actually looks like. Again, I get that question time audiences aren't exactly the most accurately representative, but we make do with what we can get going, don't we? Anyway, this has been Shadowito. Like and subscribe, please. This has been my this has been my little rant and some Dogfiska, Dogspeker even, and blessed Thursday. I hope everyone has a good day. Have a good day.